Hi all, welcome back to ThreeD Capital. It's been a while since there's been some content on the channel. ThreeD is a company that provides investors with great exposure to small cap companies, which is not normally something that they can partake in. I'm Hector from PHK Investments. You might have seen a press release that came out recently. We double as a marketing agency. We found ThreeD through some of our research, and we noticed that it was trading at a huge discount to its net asset value per share. We noticed it was trading at about 60% discount, and even nearly on its cash in the bank, which is quite incredible, really. And it was kind of a no-brainer, especially when other public companies trade at multiples of their net asset value per share. So we really wanted to find out more. We contacted Sheldon, who's with us here today. And then we learned it was just more of a growth story rather than just an asset value per share story. And that's why we're on this call today, and we're going to find out a bit more. So the first question, getting sort of straight into it, tell us a bit about the history of the company, how it was founded. Obviously, we love the family element, and your success and track record, even with the likes of Pinetree, for example.
So first, Hector, thanks for having me, and thanks for reaching out. Mm-hmm. The timing is actually quite good, which I'll go into. But just a bit of the history. Probably just under 10 years ago, this company was focused then on investing in emerging and disruptive startups, and also some mining, of which I have a background. It's basically the sequel of Pinetree, where the shares started at 12 cents and went to $26, and the assets built to $1.5 billion under its umbrella. In this case, it's a more focused approach on tech, AI, some science, and some real colossal mining initiatives. And the projects that are in the company today are multi-year initiatives. They're not just something we bought as an investment and hope to flip it for a gain. That's not really our business. Our business is we take strategic ground floor positions in these companies and work with the companies to help them grow their business. And if you went out and spoke to these individual companies, you'd find out that they would consider us their number one ally, in many cases their number one investor, and really have contributed to their growth. We mentor them, and we help them get the capital as they need. We create partnerships with other companies and so forth. So it's basically a business that's like a family office, except it's public. My son Jackson, who you will see in coming interviews, works with me, and we split the duties and then collaborate depending on which company that we're working with. So that's sort of the overall general philosophy, and what our history's been, and why I agreed to work with PHK for 2024. Is I believe that a number of our initiatives, which we've been working on for approximately 5 to 7 years, are really maturing into commercial enterprises that have basically, rocket propeller growth opportunities. These are not sort of niche businesses. They're game changing in AI and elsewhere. And we'll be happy to sort of briefly talk about those, and then and over time get into those companies more deeply. So yes, our objective here is to grow NAV if we can exponentially. That it's not just a discount to NAV, which I think the discount to NAV is a function of often companies that don't have large growth. But second is we're coming out of a sort of a small cap depression where capital's been very scarce, risk off trade, if you call it, based on interest rates and world events. And I think some of those pressures are easing, although there's always new pressures. But I'd say the direct correlation with markets, you can see the American markets are really buoyant and so forth. That's going to set the stage, we believe, for investors to go downstream into the small cap arena.
100%, yeah, definitely. And I think we've seen comparable companies follow that trend that are bigger than ThreeD, but ThreeD is acting like one of those companies, so it should follow suit, which is obviously very exciting. I think you touched on a very good point about the relationships you have with your sort of investee companies and how closely you work with them. I guess you have over 50 investments, which is a lot, much more than any other company that I've looked at in this space, in the sort of merchant banking space. What would you say are the ones to look at and really watch for Q1, Q2?
Okay, sometimes basically people look at us as a mini ARK, and for those that follow Kathy Wood's program, which is invest in disruptive technologies that really are going to have massive growth rates like Tesla, DocuSign, and so forth. We're sort of doing the equivalent on a more micro level, but we believe that we have companies that are going to achieve critical mass similar to those types of companies. It's kind of a very bold thing to say, but we've been working in the AI space for a number of years, way before others entered it. And we're backing a protocol called Hypercycle. Hypercycle is basically, their objective is become the internet of AI. So imagine all these large language models like GPT and others that people are looking at as their own ecosystem. Well, our technology allows them to speak to all other AI systems and do basically on a decentralized basis, are able to settle transactions and do information sharing on an AI to AI level. And we think this is an extremely big idea. One of the founders is Ben Goertzel from Singularity. People would know about him. So that's just a high level comment about that. Another offshoot of the same technology, which is called TODA, which is a base layer software. What it allows also is scalability, where blockchain has not been able to achieve scalability because it's a ledger-based system. So one of the applications coming out of that, so Hypercycle was one through the collaboration with Singularity. The second one is micropayments. And this is going to be, we believe, a game-changing technology for commerce to be done with pennies, not dollars, because the cost of the transaction today with KYCs and verification and processing can be very high, like even 50 cents, $1, depending on what platform it is. This technology, it's called TODA-Q, can do it for fractions of a penny. And both of these companies, Hypercycle and TODA-Q, are launching end of Q1, Q2 of this year. And we believe, based on everything that we've learned over the last 5 to 7 years, is that these are going to be extremely disruptive to business models and commerce, and it's going to be a whole new ecosystem that's going to rival some of the biggest companies out there today. So we think this is transformational, and those are two, for example, that I'll mention right now. And there are others. Not all of them have the same transformational impact, but we believe they're going to be quite significant entities.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, because essentially we're going through kind of an AI craze at the moment, but it needs to be companies that have been there, and I think you said before that it's sort of 7 years of research and how long these companies have been around, so they're not just tapping into this trend already. It's kind of maturing rather than hitting and hoping sort of thing, and it's 20 to 30 years of deep tech is my understanding.
Yeah, I mean the internet of AI is, you could argue that it's gone back 30 years of R&D in the AI side of the equation. And the AI married up with this protocol that I mentioned, software called TODA, TODA Network, and TODA Network now allows scalability of AI. So the collaboration of those two initiatives, TODA is probably a 10-year initiative, and the AI side through Ben Goertzel is probably 30 years. So this is not something that popped up and trying to take advantage of today's environment and do something neat and cool. I can't really talk about some of the collaborations right now that they're doing, but they're going to be endorsed by some of the biggest companies out there in terms of their technology, and there'll be more to disclose on these situations over time. But yes, it's based on a long period of development.
Brilliant, very good. Would you say that this is the sort of focus for Q1, Q2 with on the AI? There's obviously there's a huge number of investments you have. Is that where you direct most of the viewers currently? No,
I mean, when I say no, it's these companies are already set to go. We don't. It's not us focusing on making them. They're just they're letting the horses out of the stable, and the horses are going to go. But we also have many other initiatives. We have one of the biggest mining projects in the country of Botswana, a mine that we think is and we know is critical to U.S. strategic interests in the critical minerals category. At some point, we can talk more deeply about that. And what I thought would make sense, because of the number of companies that we have, that over time here, we would get perhaps the CEO, founder of each of these companies that Hector can do a short interview on, and people can understand and drill deeper. I can mention two other AI initiatives. One is smart cities. We have a company that's been winning contracts using AI time series data to manage water and sewage for big cities. They've got a number of contracts. Another one that's launching this quarter is going to be using AI for telehealth and being able to remotely for doctors to monitor patients in a very unique way. So those are two other initiatives that come to mind. We also have a few science initiatives that we believe are going to hit major milestones here. We have a company that just did a transformational acquisition that we believe will be ultimately the leader in pharma grade medical cannabis for the world. That is something that we want to expose to our shareholder base. Again, 7 years in the making. Companies turning profitable, but it also has a significant drug pipeline. Most of the companies out there, they don't have drugs. They just have, generic CBD or THC. This company has done R&D with hospitals, done trials, and has created formulations that solve real problems, and it's all evidence-based. So that's an initiative that we've been involved with for quite a long time, but 2024 is also going to be its year.
Lovely. Really interesting stuff, to be honest. I mean, I need to look into some of these even more, and I'm looking forward to doing so. I think one other one that I'd really like to touch on, especially with all the inflation, is 1 billion. Can you tell us a bit more about 1 billion?
Yes. Sometimes, like you have so many that you tend to look at what is happening there. But this is also a big year for 1 billion. In 2018, an associate of mine, Arnaud Brand, who's from Africa, Namibia, we decided that we wanted to pick a country in Africa that was the best country to do business in. Again, Botswana. This is separate from the other project I mentioned, which is nickel copper. This is strictly gold. And we are the largest, I believe, or second largest landholder for green belt in the country of Botswana. So it's millions of acres, if you will. And it's a very exciting project because gold was in a depression in 2018, and companies were not paying attention, and we were able to acquire licenses that was owned by one of the major mining companies in South Africa. And it's the extension of the Cryopan belt, which is in South Africa, and over 18 million ounces of gold were mined from there. And we have the extension geologically in the Greenstone Belt in Botswana. So that company is just hired a new CEO to take the reins, and also will be going public this year. So it'll be another liquidity event, which is also important for 3D. As you know, that's how we get investment capital to continue our business. So that's for the gold space. We believe it has the potential to be a mega company.
Brilliant, yeah. And in terms of some of these investments, what would you say? Would you say your involvement with them is just long term, as sort of how many years, and what's your exit strategy on some of these companies?
So, whether it be R&D or whether it be taking a mining project and bringing it along, we're very milestone focused. So as these projects evolve and we hit milestones, typically their valuation increases, they do financings and so forth. Our exit strategy, in most cases will be through public markets, through trading. But without getting into a lot of detail, we could be getting substantial dividend type income. We already have some from one of our AI investments, but there's the business model will be unveiled in the coming weeks. We believe that we will be the recipient of a substantial dividend income, which is very unusual for a small cap holding company. But for many of the others, we're waiting for liquidity events. We, for example, have a Bitcoin miner. We can't disclose because they're going to list on NASDAQ. It's probably the greenest of all Bitcoin miners out there. And once the RTO happens, which we believe is Q1, that will be a major liquidity event for us. We're very bullish on Bitcoin, so it's probably something that we would keep the majority of our interest, but it gives us optionality towards capital, because we have not done a capital raise in many years.
I think that's a good thing, to be honest. I think it shows that you don't need it. You've got such a healthy cap table and balance sheet. I mean, so there's no need to be raising, and that's very encouraging. What the next question is basically linking, towards investment strategy, is obviously we know that private equity, public and public companies are some of the best sort of returns someone can get on their investments. How do you find these companies? People like ordinary people can't touch these kind of things. How do you find them? How do you source them? And what's the sort of due diligence you do?
So, I have a long history in this business doing startups, being known for doing startups. I've invested in probably thousands of companies over time. So I have sort of very much organic deal flow that comes my way. And it comes from all over the world. Another one that I'll mention is it's a digital exchange. The parent company is a multi-billion-dollar company, came to us 2.5 years ago, and we invested in a digital component, a new exchange, and these exchange like sort of Binance, and these companies tend to trade at massive multiples, and it was in Dubai, and so it came to us. It came to us through a network of digital asset people who really understand this industry. We piggybacked on a lot of their due diligence. That exchange is also coming live this quarter. And so our investment in that will also become liquid, and we believe accretive to our NAV. So it's really just a natural deal flow that comes in daily.
Mm.
And as these industries grow, and as people realize that we invested in certain industries, and the companies become, let's say, higher profile,
Mm.
then other people tend to look at us and say, okay, I have a deal similar to that. Would you look at it? And
Yeah.
it's sort of, it has a snowball effect. And
Mm.
that is what we do. And, we try to dive deep into what these companies are and who the people are. And, it's very much a people business.
Mm. I mean, one very quick question on that is, some of these investments, it just sounds like they're not even taken into account with some of the balance sheet and some of the growth projections you have. So, for example, with the Binance exchange that you sort of have, well, Dubai, that Dubai exchange that you have, it doesn't sound like it's taken into account. Or if it is, how do you value it on the private side, and then when it's public and you can mature it, that obviously has a huge uplift and tick in value for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. My background is I'm a CPA, and I understand sort of the accounting world as, being an auditor with Price Waterhouse way back in the day. So we deal with auditors, and today there's a penchant for conservatism, using all kinds of value metrics. And especially when we have these long life assets that are private, more and more pressure to write them down. And in some of our cases, we don't fight that. We've had to write them down entirely because it's a zero sum game. Sometimes they either go public and there's a value that is like a benchmark that you can look at and create that value, or you have to do an intrinsic calculation. Black-Scholes are all kinds of different models, and they're very sophisticated models. So I would say that the investment value in the company today is extremely conservative compared to what their value would be, say, out on a public market.
Yeah. And you'd maybe have to go off last raises, but that might be from so long ago that it's probably not accurate. So
yeah, so we've had that where if there is a raise, a benchmark, then that's taken into account. You're totally right about that. But if, let's say, there is not another raise for quite some time, then there seems to be a downgrade in its value from an auditor accounting perspective. So yes, I would say that we report in a very conservative manner.
Yeah.
And even some of the things that are traded are discounted to a certain degree as well if we have a large position.
That's very impressive, especially knowing how conservative and how accurate you have to be when putting out press releases. You're really on the safe side and not trying to pump things up or anything to the sort. But last question, I mean, it's an age-old question by every shareholder, is are there any catalysts you can tell us about, or anything that you could tease? I mean, you have already teased a few things, which is obviously quite interesting and exciting. Is there anything that we should be watching, or any little phrases that someone could go do some extreme due diligence on and find something?
Well, as I said before, I agreed to for the first time enter into an outward reach campaign, IRPR, however you want to call it, because I do believe that the timing is imminent. And I would say at least a half a dozen projects to have catalysts in the coming months. Many of them are going to do major initiatives on their own that I believe we can link in based on perhaps future conversations. As people get familiar with the names that we've invested in, they're going to be able to perhaps follow those individual companies, see the news, see some of the catalysts, because we as ThreeD, we don't put out a press release saying a company we invested in did a press release. I do have social media that we post on LinkedIn and Twitter, but now we'll have our conversations here where I can elaborate, and I can certainly point people to where they can look, certainly based on milestones that are hit and releases, and people can follow those individual situations, because in today's world, they all have websites and they all have social media. We're just going to bring it to the attention. What's interesting about 3D is that, you know, we sort of have like a balanced portfolio in different areas of the market that perhaps people wouldn't get access to on their own.
Exactly.
In many cases, it's either sophisticated technology, it's institutional only, it's ground floor, like in 1 billion, you know, it's the people we knew. It's, you know, most people, you know, we don't know, so they wouldn't have been involved in the seed stock in that company. So it's sort of like a portfolio approach, if you will. But I think in some of the most dynamic, disruptive areas, and, you know, we believe that even our mining initiatives are going to be world-class. So there is more to say about all of these things as we go forward. I thought today I would just give an you know, sort of general, you know, from 30,000 feet. These are some of the areas that we're involved in. Yes, there will be catalysts in the first 6 months of this year. Could even be the first 3 months, but I'm always wary to give dates, because these are not our businesses; these are other people's businesses, and they depend on many factors. So, yes, that's why we're here just post New Year of 2024, and we expect that we're going to have a very prolific and dynamic year at 3D.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's basically a very, very strong foundation with a couple of things that people might find really interesting, a couple of unicorns, maybe even decacorns. Some of these companies are doing really interesting things over the next few months. So yeah, thanks very much for telling us more, and I hope everyone's got some value from this. I know I have, and there's going to be a lot of research, I think, done, and some focused communication. So let's get to it.
Thank you, Hector. Till next time.